Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back. We've got a bunch of business to unpack today, starting with James Comey's arraignment, an appearance in court today that looked like this. And so quick preview on what's coming up, and then we'll zoom in for further detail on this one. But Comey was in court today. Bunch of media was out there. They were actually expecting him to do or say something, and he has been pretty quiet today, but we've got a bunch of reports. These people were outside the courthouse. You can see there were protesters there, I think on behalf of Comey. And so we'll parse through what was going on, but they had set up, you can see right here, a podium. So they were expecting that Comey would, I guess, come out and talk to the press about 86 somebody or whatever. And he didn't do that. So it was kind of a light day. We've got the documents here queued up. So there was a new order that came down that adjusted or actually explained what was going to happen today. So this was the arraignment order. So we'll go through that, and then we'll hear what happened inside from the individuals who were there reporting on it. And your boy has a records request in to the court reporter for the transcripts. So she said she would send me the invoice tonight on that one, and then we can get it paid, and we'll get it, but we don't have it today. Yeah, but we'll get to it. So it's on its way. It wasn't done with it yet. So we'll go through that once we get it, just so we have it on record what exactly he said when he entered the plea of not guilty. Because this is more, we've got the documents from what happened today, the minute entries. We got the new dates. Comey's scheduled for a trial in 2026, so not too far from now. And we'll explain everything. We got other documents here to go through and reaction from Pelosi, Schmidt, Comer, and Judiciary Jim over on the show this first segment. Then we'll jump into the Jack Smith saga because, boy, we were shocked yesterday to see the senators so up in arms about being spied on. When we're getting spied on, they're like, we love FISA. Yeah, terrorists. And so they are now very furious, and it's just been a sight to see. Now, Coach Tommy Tuberville, thank you for the correction, has now said that Jack Smith needs to go to jail for this, which is good, which is pretty good. So turning up that volume a little bit. Yesterday from John Thune, we got like a 2 out of 10 on the energy level. And so this one's, we're ratcheting it up there. Like, let's go. All right. So bunch of reaction. They were all out hitting the cables yesterday. We got Cash on this one, John Kennedy, Josh Hawley. We got Joni Ernst was out here, Ron Johnson, and we're going to see we got some momentum brewing to go after the people who did this, who were spying on our elected senators and Trump campaign officials, and presumably people very close to Trump that we don't even know anything about yet. So we'll keep our eye on that, obviously, but lots of reaction on that today. And then we're going to turn our attention to what went down at the Supreme Court, because Judicial Watch was calling these oral arguments historic. It's about election integrity, and it's about an issue that we talked a lot about in the aftermath of 2020, where in 2020, we saw a bunch of Trump lawsuits get filed, and they were all rejected. Not all of them, but a good portion of them on what? You remember. Standing. Oh, yeah, because you can't sue if you're an elected official or you're a candidate. You can't sue. If you sue, you don't have standing. If you sue too early, it's not ripe. If you sue too late, it's now moot. The election's over. It's like, gosh, you can't sue for anything. So this has made its way up to the Supreme Court. Pretty complicated set of arguments. They went almost for 2 hours, the oral arguments. Today, we'll hit some of the highlights, and we got a mind map to explain what these arguments are on behalf of the petitioners, the candidates who wants to stop the counting of votes after the election, saying, we can't do that. They said, well, sorry, you can't sue. You have no standing. He said, well, I'm a candidate. I don't have standing to sue. I think, no, sorry. Well, who can sue then if the candidate can't sue? So we'll hear from their arguments. And what's also interesting about this one is the DOJ, Trump's attorney general, submitted a request to participate in the case. And so they also had opening statements today. So we'll piece through it all and get into the business on the day. It is a beautiful, beautiful Wednesday. We're glad that you're here. Hopefully your week is amazing and you're accomplishing all the things you set your mind to. And if you need a tool To help you accomplish even more things that you set your mind to, well, you know what's out there. Comet from Perplexity. And I've got this new thing to show you on this, where this is their new browser. And you can actually just go grab this for free. And I have this prompt that I wanted to show you how it works, because this browser will literally do things for you. It's pretty incredible. So if you're over here on Perplexity, this is the browser. Let me move my fat head out of the way. And you click this assistant button. It's up here in the top right. You just click this assistant button. What you can do is put in prompts like this. And so I was testing this earlier. Let's see how we do. I said, find me 3 printer options from Staples. Okay, it's a very simple example. Browse for color laser printers and open each page you find in a new tab in my browser so I can see the options easily. And this is a little tip. If you want it to open the new tabs, say something like you can see it, because what this actually does is it browses for you. So we're going to enter that prompt, and it's just going to start going. And what's happening is it's actually browsing. Okay, so that you can see right there, it's going to the website, clicking around. I'll help you find 3 laser color printers. It's doing it all. And as it continues to progress, it's ultimately going to find them. Perfect. I found several options. I'll select the 3 with good variety of features and price points. It's still clicking, clicking around. It's clicking on all of the things. Reasoning. And then what's going to happen is let's go back and open them in a new tab. Let me open the second printer. And we're hoping here, it's kind of, takes a little minute because it's actually browsing the websites. It's now going to the third one, and it should open up all the tabs for us. And so you kind of will get the gist of it. It's opening the third printer now. And it's all browsing behind the scenes. Okay, so no hands, task successful, opened each in the browser. And there we go. So see, for that example, it did not open the tabs for me. So you just have to say something like, open the tabs in my browser, and then it should open them all up. There it goes. So see, now it's opening them all up for us. So it's got them saved, but you just get, hey, open them all up. So it's just pulling them all up for you, and that's no hand. So it just kind of does it for you. So it's a cool browser. You got to, play around with it to get the prompts working for you the way that you want them to, but you can just talk to it and it'll search for you and pull up the options. So pretty cool. It's free. You can download it now. Links in the description below. And I would play around with it. It's awesome. I actually was already paying for Perplexity before they decided to sponsor the show. And it's a cool tool. So check it out. All right. So, and thanks for letting me show you that. All right. So now let's get into the business on the day. James Comey arraigned. He was in court today, but not too talkative. You can see the media was there with a microphone in his face saying, anything to say here, James? And the answer was no. Now, for some reason, there was this podium that was set up outside the courthouse. You can see Fox News was there. A bunch of people were there, and there was a bunch of microphones up there. There were protesters for James Comey, calling this a show trial, whatever, probably more paid protesters from somewhere. And they were there, and nobody came up to the mic. Was he going to come out and say anything? No, we didn't hear from James Comey today. So we'll go through this and see exactly what went down. We got all the documents queued up, the release orders and the trial dates and more. But here is what ABC News had when they were there inside the building, following him around. They said, former FBI Director James Comey pleaded not guilty. James, we know you did it, but okay, we believe that you're entitled to the presumption of innocence. And hopefully you're afforded it to the same level that you afforded it to President Trump. Says here, not guilty to both counts in a federal indictment. And his attorney said that they will seek to have the case dismissed for vindictive and selective prosecution. This guy's entire life and career has been vindictive and selective. What you need to know is now streaming on Disney Plus. Don't go get it. So here's what they posted. You don't need to go to over there. We got it right here. This is all you need.
Former FBI Director James Comey entered a plea of not guilty to federal charges of making false statements to Congress and obstruction, allegations he denies. The indictment brought by President Trump's hand-picked U.S. attorney, despite previous investigations determining there was insufficient evidence of a crime. Now, sources familiar with the DOJ's findings telling ABC News that a central witness in the Comey probe, law professor Daniel Richman, who prosecutors allege was authorized by Comey to leak information to the press, is, quote,
Comey hired that dude so that he could leak.
Problematic and would likely prevent them from being able to establish their case to a jury. Pierre Thomas is at the courthouse.
Hey, Rachel, former FBI Director James Comey was calm and collected in a roughly 28-minute arraignment hearing, but the biggest headline from the hearing is that we got a preview of what his defense is going to be. They plan to file a motion that is a retaliatory prosecution. They will allege outrageous government conduct, and they're going to challenge the lawfulness of the appointment of Lindsay Halligan as the U.S. attorney to prosecute the case. There's a lot on the line, not only for Comey, but also DOJ. They'll have to prove their case in court, and there are serious questions about how strong their evidence will be.
The judge has set Comey.
All right, so it's pretty interesting. You remember those phrases, selective, vindictive prosecution, and that basically the U.S. attorney is illegally appointed. It's all the Trump defenses that we've already covered here, okay? So he's copying and pasting Trump's homework. His attorneys are using the same arguments, essentially, that we're under attack. And by the way, Trump lost those arguments. Trump beat Jack Smith in Mar-a-Lago because of his illegal appointment, because he was appointed as a special counsel and was not a even lawfully even designated U.S. attorney. Halligan is an acting U.S. attorney. She hasn't been Senate confirmed yet. So that argument might actually carry some weight. We'll see what, of course, they're going to try to find any excuse that they possibly can to give him the benefit of the doubt on this. And so that's the one that you go, okay, a little nervous on that one. But selective and vindictive prosecution, we've already heard that before. They said, Trump was not being selectively or vindictively prosecuted. That's ridiculous. He clearly was all over the country 4 times. And then they were also trying to bankrupt him and throw him off the ballot to boot. So it was nonstop. And now he's going to make that same argument. Obviously, he's the criminal, and he is entitled to the same presumption of innocence that they gave President Trump. Allegedly. He's just an alleged criminal. Yeah, all right. So here's what Fox News said when they were outside.
FBI Director James Comey in front of a judge moments ago in a hearing that we did not think would last long, and apparently that is the case. He has entered a plea of not guilty to 2 charges, federal level now. Our producers inside the courtroom say the former director accused of lying to Congress, obstructing a congressional proceeding, entered the plea moments ago in front of the judge, Michael Nachmanoff, appointed by Joe Biden, not guilty on both federal charges. He's accused of lying in front of Congress back in 2020.
Yeah, and lying in many other locations as well. But here is the podium, and nobody came and said anything as far as I know. So MSNBC was out there. There were protesters out there, and he's going to tell us much the same. So we can fast forward through that. But here is what Steve Bannon had to say. He was very unhappy about this because, of course, Steve Bannon was also put through the ringer. He went to prison from these maniacs and their political prosecutions. And he was watching this. Where is James Comey? We didn't see an arrest. We didn't see them. By the way, remember Roger Stone was charged with the same crimes exactly as James Comey. And they raided him. They had a bunch of FBI goons in full gear at his door in like 6 a.m. after they had already notified CNN to wake up their goons and come out with cameras and stake the place out. Sick people. And now they're just getting, have James Comey just show up, kind of in the back door. People are waiting out front for him to come in the courtroom, and they snuck him in underground or wherever. So here was what Steve Bannon had to say about this, rightfully disappointed at the double standard that exists here. Why do the lefties get coddled and carted around like royalty when Roger Stone gets attacked by federal agents in his home?
I got breaking news. They slipped Comey in through another entrance so he didn't have to come through here. This is bullshit. I don't know who at DOJ and who at the FBI, I hope the White House understands this, that, instead of Navarro and I, and look, I proudly walked in there because I was proud of what I did. And I wasn't going to have the media. Mike Davis, you know this. You're one of the guys that backed me, one of my lawyers. I was proud. I don't mind backing down the media, but they try to sit there and psychologically break you. So they got that image of you walking into court the entire time. I don't know how James Comey's in court right now. He just pleaded not guilty. Is that correct? On social media? They allowed Comey to do something they didn't allow anybody else to do. This is the problem. The problem is the system is rigged on these guys' side, okay? It's got to stop.
He's right. They give them every benefit of the doubt, and apparently the explanation for that is it's a clerical error. Okay, who made the clerical error? So they operated by subpoena rather than an arrest warrant, and the whole thing was just like kids' gloves. little patty cake. Oh, here, James, come and arrest you. You got criminal charges against you. And he just shows up, and it's a pretty simple proceeding, as it always is. Here is the arraignment order for defendant James Comey. What a beautiful sound that is. Defendant James B. Comey Jr. You hear that? Oh, yeah, say it one more time. Defendant James B. Comey Jr. Says shall begin promptly at 10 a.m. Wednesday, October 8th, 2025. That's today. Says here in the courthouse, because seating capacity will be limited for this clown show, that courtroom 601 will be reserved and will serve as an overflow courtroom. Courtroom 601 will have screens, which should enable attendees to see and hear what's happening. And a court security officer will always be present to ensure that appropriate decorum is maintained. Okay, you Antifa punks. And to communicate with IT if there's any other video problems. Hearing will not be delayed. If there's any problems, you just deal with it. Media members must obtain a media pass. Passes are available from the operations supervisor. Clerk's office is open daily. I called them today. A valid ID and evidence of media status are required for a media pass. A pass is valid only for the duration of the arraignment. Because seating is limited, you're not guaranteed a seat, so get here early. Any media personnel with a pass who are unable to obtain a seat, you have to go to courtroom 601. And here are the schedules. The court anticipates today that there may be a significant delay in getting through security. Attendees should plan their arrival times accordingly to avoid delays. You should also be aware of the rules. All visitors must have a valid photo ID. Cell phones and smartwatches shall not be used in either courtroom, must remain in a locked yonder pouch, locking up the cell phones, for the duration of the hearing. Further details about the courthouse electronics policy can be found, all signed by the judge, Michael S. Nachmanoff, United States District Judge. So the proceedings were pretty quick. About 28 minutes, I think, was the official clock in. Here's what they told us from inside. It says, former FBI Director James Comey entered a plea of not guilty. His attorney was called Pat Fitzgerald. He waived a reading of the indictment, which is very common and normal. Basically, the judge, you have the option of having the judge arraign you, read everything out. James Comey, you understand that you were charged with this count one. On this date or offense, about this location, you were charged with, lying to Congress, right, was his official count. So you explain what it is by doing the thing. Just read the indictment, essentially. We've already read it. Our defense already got a copy of it. So we don't need you to read it out loud. Do you waive the reading? Yes, we do. Says during the brief court appearance, and it just speeds things up. You don't need to sit there to read it. You've already read it. Last month, a federal grand jury indicted him, 2 charges, making a false statement and obstruction. So false statements and obstructions were the 2 felony counts Trump had posted just days earlier. We can't delay this any longer. They fired the attorney. Halligan came in, and here we go. Comey, they say, who was a registered Republican. Yeah, okay. And served in the Justice Department during George Bush. Yeah, okay. It's George Bush. Says the Trump administration accuses Comey of lying to Congress, which he did. There's video of it. And his daughter, Maureen, who is now fired by the Justice Department she was the one who tried to clean up Diddy and Epstein and Maxwell all together. She was just the cleanup crew. Comey only spoke once during the hearing, walking to the microphone to say, I do, Your Honor. Thank you very much. Do you understand your rights? That's all he said. So his attorneys entered the plea of not guilty for him. They didn't ask him, Mr. Comey, how do you plead? They just said, do you enter a plea of not guilty, waive reading, all the things? Yes, we do, Your Honor. They moved on. Also, again, normal. A trial date was set for January 5th, and both parties expect the trial to last 2 to 3 days. Comey's team told the judge they'll be filing 2 sets of motions. One for vindictive and selective prosecution, exactly what Trump filed in his cases, and he lost those, and a motion challenging the appointment of Lindsay Halligan, saying she's not a real boy. Trump's former personal attorney, who was, of course, now appointed over there as the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. They say that her appointment is unlawful. I don't know how that is. Says Fitzgerald said that Comey's team also planned to file motions for grand jury abuse. Okay, and outrageous government conduct. So they'll come firing on all cylinders. The charges against Comey were filed after Trump successfully pressured. Give me a break. Says Halligan, the other people were obstructionists. They didn't want to actually prosecute somebody who was in on their own because there's this institutional protectionism that exists. You hear this, the most common example of this is with police officers. They don't really like to talk about this, but the blue code of silence, you kind of look that one up a little bit. You're like, oh, that's interesting. And, it's like a little bit of you're speeding, you pull out your badge, I pulled you over. Yeah. Because I was going 40 miles over the speed limit and pull out your badge like, oh, all right, well, don't do it anymore in my county. All right, get out of here. And they just kind of let each other go. Same thing with the DOJ, FBI. They think of themselves as protecting the institution. They are aligned with the institution. In fact, they are defined by the institution. Their whole lives, and you meet some of these people, their whole lives are centered around it. That's why they're so weird. I'm a prosecutor. For what? What do you do? Urination in public crimes? I know, you're an American hero. Thank you for your great job. And they think of themselves like that, like they're, Johnny Cochran or something. Like, just chill out. All right, you're prosecuting disorderly conduct cases. Just take it easy. So, but when you get to the FBI stat, it's like a whole different level, right? Especially in because they've almost been glorified in the TV shows and the CSIs and FBIs and SVUs and all the things. Like, wow, they're so amazing and heroic. You're like, have you seen some of them going to the doors, knocking on people? All right. So Comey is now, or was, probably still is, being protected by those people because it's their whole lives. And if Comey is taken down, then it shreds the credibility of the institution in which they are invested. And they can't have that happen. It would be catastrophic for their egos. Halligan sought 3 charges, but 12 or more grand jurors said, well, there's not enough on the 1 charge. Most of the grand jurors found there was probable cause to hit him with those 2 counts, false statements and obstruction. Comey, of course, is before him, and no electronics allowed. Trump has said more charges are coming soon, and we got some other documents here. So here's what went down. Minute entry from the James Comey hearing, his arraignment in federal court today for 2 felonies, 9:56 to 10:23 a.m. Very brief hearing. And happening in front of Judge Michael S. Nachmanoff. You can see attorneys were there. Patrick Fitzgerald and Jessica Carmichael on behalf of James Comey, the defendant. Lindsay Halligan, Gabriel Diaz, and Nathaniel Tyler Lemons will be representing the government and the Trump DOJ. And I believe Gabriel and Nathaniel came over from another district. So we were here for an arraignment very early in the case. We have Comey appearing in person for his felony arraignment. 2 felonies. Can you believe this? He's been charged by a grand jury with 2 felonies. Remember how they kept saying that? Yeah. So in person with counsel, his attorney was there, and they waived the formal advisement, the formal reading. They entered a plea of not guilty, and they demanded a jury trial. So the judge asked a couple simple questions, and both parties agreed to waive the right to a speedy trial as articulated in open court. Now, parties also directed to confer with regard to a discovery order. So make sure you meet and exchange and understand what you're exchanging. Parties directed to submit proposed discovery orders by October 13th, which is coming soon. Now they're directed to immediately confer about giving the defense team, so Comey's attorneys, access to classified info pursuant to a proposed SEPA, which we talked about with President Trump, briefing schedule. And so Comey is going to have to fight for access to those things now, right? He's out of the government. So how the tables have turned. What a beautiful thing. Court advised counsel of process to appoint an out-of-district judge to resolve a defense motion for disqualification of Lindsay Halligan. So if you don't want me to rule on this, so the defense is saying, we want to disqualify her, she's illegitimate. So how do we do that? The judge gave them some advice. The advisement was given in courts. The court adopts a pretrial services report about James Comey, and the big portion of this is the defendant was entered on a PR bond. And of course, I highlighted right over that, but personal recognizance bond. So he's not going to have to post, $10,000 to get out of custody or anything. She's like, well, you're the former FBI director, so are you a flight risk? I don't know, maybe. Are you a danger to the community? I don't know, 8647. Like, if he was a J6er and the government was like, 8647, judge, like he wants to murder people. They'd be like, oh my gosh, this is fascism. They lock him up in solitary, but it's James Comey. It's like, well, you're an former FBI director, so we trust you. Don't run. So here's the order for conditions of release. Here's what James Comey has to do now that he's released on his own recognizance for 2 federal felony charges. It is ordered that James Comey's release is subject to these conditions. 1, don't break the law, James. Even if you're walking the beach, let's not talk about assassinations. If you're his counsel, just like, hey man, You see any interesting shell beach formations on the beach? Just don't talk about them until this case is over, okay? Like 187-47. Like, don't post that, Jim. So don't violate the law. You must also cooperate in the collection of a DNA sample. Oh, gosh. Put on a hazmat suit for that one. The defendant must advise the court or the pretrial services office in writing before making any change of residence, so don't move without letting us know. You must also appear in court, and if convicted, you got to surrender, and if we want to send you to prison, you got to go. So you must appear, come back here, Alexandria, Virginia, at the next court date. Just sign an appearance bond. Just say, yes, I promise to appear. Anything else? Is he going into custody? No. Kind of hoping we get something right there, you know. The defendant must also submit and report. You're going to be supervised by, don't even have to click that. She didn't click that one. You know what? Maybe they did click it. I can't see it. Maybe it's just a bad screen, a scan, because it looks like they probably checked this one. So this came right over from the court, but it looks like it's kind of a bad scan, because I would imagine if they're going to type something right here, that they would check that. Like, otherwise, if that didn't apply, all right. So yeah, put a pin in these. So he's got to report to pretrial services, which is very normal. So where are you? You know, just let us know, and they'll tell you when to respond back. Abide by the following restrictions. Do not depart DC metro area without prior approval of pretrial or the court. Now, I don't know if he lives there or not, but, you know, typically if they're going to type something in this sentence, in this box, they would check that box. So it kind of feels like it's a bad scan to me, and so I can't really see if there's anything else on there. But I would presume that something is checked. So, all right, so you get the gist of it. So I don't know exactly what his release conditions are, but since he's on basically OR, on his own recognizance, probably very, very limited. Otherwise, just let the court know where you're going to be. And this is out of the Eastern District of Virginia. So they're just saying, he's probably saying, yeah, I'm going to be in DC. So I don't need to go anywhere, but if I do, I'll let you know. Do you understand James Comey? That's him right there. James B. Carey. Okay, so thanks, James. So signed off on that, directions saying we're not, you know, he's free to go. And he was gone. Nobody got to see him. He was out and gone with the wind. So Politico says he pleaded not guilty. It was his first appearance. And now we also have a trial date that has been scheduled. So we've got motions here and response deadlines and oral arguments and some options. And then the case is being set for a jury trial on 1/5/2026 at 9 a.m. And, you know, generally those are just loose kind of settings. If there's continuances or they have SEPA complications, we see those trial dates get bumped out. And we'll see if anything happens. But this is interesting. I mean, we're going to be in the middle of an election season coming up right soon, right in the middle of that. So if that does get bumped out, let's say to, 90 days, maybe another 90 days, puts us right in the middle of election season. And we'll see how that impacts things. But reaction to all of this is happening. CNN was calling out Nancy Pelosi, saying it's not exactly the same, crazy Nancy. She's very upset that James Comey is being prosecuted for lying to Congress. Trump never lied to Congress all the time. How come we're not prosecuting him? Here is crazy Nancy.
And that is nobody who has lied more to Congress than Donald Trump. And that's why I tore up his speech, because it was a manifesto of lies, and I said at the time. So it's so cute almost that he's accusing somebody of lying to Congress.
Right. Obviously, he wasn't under oath. It's a different...
Doesn't matter. He's the president of the United States speaking.
It does matter, actually, because one of those is a crime. The other is not.
To the Congress of the United States.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Appreciate it.
There are charges I think you could theoretically bring to against somebody for lying to Congress, but Trump was not there. He was giving the State of the Union. He wasn't testifying to Congress, whether you're under oath or not. There's another provision, I think, that we've seen charged, not often charged, but can be charged. But anyways, crazy Nancy's not happy. She's getting a little pushback. That was a political speech. He wasn't testifying to truth or fact about his oversight. You guys weren't grilling him. Mr. President, we got questions about this. Is it true under oath that you didn't spy on this person, or you didn't leaked documents. It wasn't like that, crazy Nancy. It was a State of the Union. It was a political address, but she has a hard time with that, or she just doesn't really care. Eric Schmidt, he also said, this is the time. It has come for criminal prosecutions. Comey, Clapper, Brennan, and anyone else involved better lawyer up. Here's Schmidt.
The time has come for criminal prosecutions. I think some of the statute of limitations has expired on some of these things, but not on a conspiracy. And the fact is, if you're part of a conspiracy in mile marker 1, but you try to take an exit ramp at mile marker 5, you're still liable for the damage and the criminal activity at mile marker 10. We're at mile marker 10. And so whether it's Comey, Clapper, Brennan, whoever else we know or don't know right now is a part of this, I think indictments should be coming here. We can't tolerate this. And the Democrats try to act like President Trump's weaponizing. It's not what's happening.
This is about accountability.
It is, and I would say this.
Someone has to be accountable
100%. And also, we need to be clear of the distinction. They weaponized it. The fact that we would go after people who weaponized it is not the same thing, because if we don't do that, it's going to happen again. The time
it is. These people who think that they can just keep getting away with it can't just keep getting away with it. They've been getting away with it for a long enough time, and the people are sick of it. So here was more. James Comer was also talking about this. He was on with CNN, and here is what the leader of the Oversight Committee had to say, duking it out with Jake Tapper over the prosecution of James Criminal Comey.
Any concerns at all that this is a political prosecution?
Absolutely not. This is where I probably disagree with you, Jake. I've seen enough on Comey that I think that he deserves a day in court. I believe that there's been sufficient evidence that has emerged that would show potential wrongdoing. Obviously, Comey deserves due process, as does anyone else. But as far as political retribution, I don't view it as retribution. I view it as accountability. And I think that Comey has been a part of a team of bureaucrats in Washington that have weaponized the judicial system, that have weaponized the intelligence agency. So I think that this should be prosecuted, and obviously he deserves his day in court and he deserves due process. But I certainly think there's enough evidence to move forward.
That's right. Plenty for him and the others. And it's very nice to see Schmidt saying we need to take this even further because we want accountability, as Laura Ingraham passionately said. James Comey also was the subject of this interview with Jim Jordan, and here's what Jim had to say.
I wanted to ask you, though, about what we saw today, and that was former FBI Director James Comey appear in a federal courthouse in Virginia. He pleaded not guilty to 2 charges of making a false statement and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. We'd been anticipating this, but as you know, the statute of limitations was on its way out. The Trump team was able to, or DOJ was able to get an indictment, right? But you're wondering how this will stick. And really, if the charges do have merit, what will you be watching for, Congressman? Where do you think this case goes?
Judiciary
I think
Chairman.
It's important to remember this all started, this whole lawfare, this attack on this weaponization of government, this attack on President Trump, all started with Comey 10 years ago. So I think it's entirely appropriate that he's being held to account, particularly for false statements it looks like he made to the United States Congress. But remember, 10 years ago, we learned from the whistleblower who came to Tulsi Gabbard that they changed the intelligence community assessment. They changed the report back in December of 2016, after the election of President Trump's first term, before he was sworn in for his first term. In that December-January timeframe, they changed the report. And then Jim Comey goes up to Trump Tower January 6, 2017, briefs the president on, gives his, the president-elect his intelligence briefing, talks to him about the dossier that Jim Comey already knew was a baloney false document.
From Hillary.
Talks to the president about it, and then goes and leaks that to the press, and thereby creates this whole predicate, this whole reason to have Bob Mueller, the special counsel appointed to undermine and sabotage President Trump's first term. It all began with Comey. And the fact that he misled Congress and said false statements to the Congress in the course of our investigation, he's now being held to account for that. I think it's entirely appropriate. And frankly, I don't think he's the only one. I think John Brennan looks like he misled Congress as well.
He did.
And maybe said false things to Congress. I think we're going to look into that issue, and the Justice Department is looking into that also. But Jim Comey's the start of all this.
Yeah, Comey is the first domino, hopefully of many to come. And Brennan would be another good one. And so we might see multiple indictments come down. You know, James Comey indicted, John Brennan indicted, James Clapper indicted, the list goes on. And then maybe we'll all see them as co-defendants in a RICO case or conspiracy matter. And we're looking forward to that. So we're, of course, going to keep our eye on this one. We do have a request in for the transcripts. There's not going to be anything too juicy in there, but kind of want to start to chronicle some of this and keep it in the record books. So we're looking for those. Of course, when we get them, we'll run through them here when appropriate. Thank you for subscribing and joining as our coverage continues. Now, let's turn our attention to another very fun story, which we're just having a lot of enjoyment with. From this one, Jack Smith needs to go to jail for this. That's how upset the senators are about being spied on by the Democrats. Joe Biden's illegally appointed Jack Smith, who came in here and gobbled up data from sitting U.S. senators, all Republican, and House individuals as well. And here is what Coach Tommy Tuberville had to say, saying Jack Smith spied on the phones of 8 capitalized U.S. senators. And they were boiling mad yesterday, but man, they had a night on it. They slept on it. They all went back. They checked their calendars. Like, what was I doing January 4th to 7th? We were on that cruise, honey. You were? She's like, we were? Oh, yeah, we were. So it's not good, and they're all freaked out about it. So now they're really mad. They woke up this morning like, okay, somebody needs to go to jail for this. Yesterday it was like we needed investigations. Tuberville has turned it up, and we're happy to see it because it's true. And this has been the same type of abuse that many Americans have received. Many people on Trump's campaign have received. It has been political weaponization for a long time, and the Senate was mostly quiet about it. In fact, we'd see guys, not like anybody particular today, but you'd see many of them on the FISA battles saying, no, we love FISA. Stop it. You oppose FISA? Yeah. Is that because you love terrorists? Give me a break, Lindsey Graham. No, get out of here. So now, since they got spied on, they're all just very animated about it. And we're here for it. It's like, welcome to the party. Come on in. We told you. Come on in. We told you. Have a seat over here. I know. You feel bad now? All right. Here is what Tuberville had to say.
It's absolutely amazing. It's all started back during the Obama years when Lois Lerner of the IRS was weaponized to go after these LLCs from conservative groups. Ever since then, if you go back and look at it, there's been a pattern of people being attacked on the Republican side. It's wrong. It needs to quit happening, and people need to be fired over it, not just these FBI agents, but let's go after Jack Smith. Let's go after the people that pulled the trigger to go after a sitting president of the United States, Donald Trump.
Thank you for that, Tuberville. And he's exactly right. And he didn't go so far in that statement, but he posted this on X. Needs to go to jail for this. Jack Smith needs to go to jail for this. A sitting senator. And Tommy Tuberville's not a crazy person, right? He's a pretty reasonable dude. And he's calling for jail. So that's nice to see. Now, here's more. We got Kash Patel said none of these people were even considered criminals at all. Like, there's no basis for investigating them other than the fact that they were trying to take out Republican senators who they needed off the stage. They have no criminal activity associated with them whatsoever, says Kash. And here's what he said on with Todd Blanche sitting to his right on with Fox.
Just step back and think about it for a second. You have, as you now know of, 8 sitting United States senators whose phone records were subpoenaed by the Department of Justice in the prior administration. For what? For what purpose? None of these senators are criminals. They have no criminal activity associated with them whatsoever. Why did the Department of Justice and Jack Smith go in there and authorize subpoenas? And it's not just them, there's others. And so what we're doing in our transparency, in our commitment to transparency, in our initiative at FBI and DOJ, is putting the records out, providing them to Congress, letting them conduct oversight. But we will also internally investigate those involved. We've already disbanded the Public Corruption Squad at WFO. We've already jettisoned these people at the FBI that were involved in the politicization of law enforcement. And if there needs to be a criminal investigation,
yes,
you better believe it, we're on it.
Yes, there does.
Step back and think about
There's
it
no
for a
if
second.
about it,
You
Cash.
have, as you now know,
no if, ands, or buts. There needs to be a criminal investigation. There is currently one into Comey, hopefully many more to come. So here was John Kennedy, another senator who woke up this morning and he was even more mad, having slept on the fact that they got his phone records. And here is what he said on with Fox Business today. They're all hitting the cables. And this is good development because we want to create some energy and momentum around this. So hopefully it catches fire with the other Republican senators and they actually do so. They can form a committee. They can subpoena a bunch of people. They can form their own little Jack Smith Select Committee. And Jack Smith is an extension and a domino into all of it. Into January 6th, he prosecuted both those cases. It wasn't just the classified documents case. It was the January 6th case that he also stole from Liz Cheney. So he stole the one from Timothy Thibault, stole another one from Liz Cheney, and they all just were working together, colluding together. So this is beautiful. We love to see the senators haul them all in there and ask them questions. And if they think they're pardoned with Joe Biden's fake auto pen pardon, then they can make that argument in the court of law.
When I first heard about the story, I thought it was satire. I thought it was some nonsense.
Oh, it's real life, man.
On TikTok. I'm appalled. It's unconscionable. It really is breathtaking. This is a special counsel of the Department of Justice who sought and received the phone records of 8 sitting United States senators.
Crazy.
The telephone companies just turned them over.
Wild.
We have no idea what the predicate was.
Nothing.
Why the FBI and the Justice Department and Mr. Smith were asking for the records. We only found out about it because of a whistleblower. I'm shocked that Smith. I thought he was smarter than this. I mean, I've got rocks in my driveway that are smarter than this.
Is he in your book? Is he in your upcoming book?
No, he should be. Look, I want to have a separate hearing. I want to call him to testify. I'd like the Attorney General Garland to come testify.
Yes.
I think we need to hear from former Director Chris Wray.
Yep.
Mr. Smith may plead the Fifth Amendment. If I were he, I probably would, because this is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke. This is the sort of thing that happens in a country whose Powerball jackpot is 287 chickens and a goat. This doesn't happen in America.
Well, sadly, Senator, it seems like it does. And, you know, to President Trump's credit, he has long called out the weaponization of government, and
he lived it for 4 years.
In particular,
longer than
the
that.
FBI. And I wonder, doesn't this just prove that what he's been saying all along is very much right?
Well, yes, it proves it in spades. And they hid it all. Once again, we found out about this from a whistleblower. But they haven't heard the end of it. Now the FBI and DOJ is going to investigate. But they can get the facts for us within 4 weeks. And if they decide to prosecute, we may have to back off in the Senate Judiciary Committee. But if they don't, I want to hold a special hearing. I want to issue a subpoena to Mr. Smith, to former Attorney General Garland, to former Director Chris Wray. We're going to get to the bottom of this.
Let's go.
And I can promise you this. I've talked to all 8 of the senators. You're going to see some civil lawsuits filed, particularly against these telephone companies who just willingly turned over the records without trying to quash any subpoena that they got.
But so far, Senator, my understanding, too, is that it doesn't just stop with your fellow senators and the congressmen. It's also 92 Republican-linked groups that were also looked into by Jack Smith, as well as Turning Point USA,
bank
the
records
organization that was founded by the late Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, and they weren't that upset about that. Remember, we went through the list a week ago. The list, Chuck Grassley released it. We read through, oh, there's Charlie's organization right there, along with like 50 other pages of other organizations or 50 spreadsheet rows. Dozens, right? Or 97, she said. Tons of spying, tapping, surveilling all their political opponents. But many of these senators weren't shocked and appalled. This wasn't unconscionable when that was happening. But now it's their phones. So now they really care. That entire laundry list, I think we even talked about it yesterday. Well, that's, I can't believe they did that to you. Now it's, you did that to me? Yeah. You're not exempt from these communist maniacs. They're going to do everything they can. And they think that the ends justify the means. Like, it's literally in their ideology. It's a logical extension. It's not actually in theirs. But anyways, you get the point. They'll kill you if it will help usher in their violent revolution and their insane utopia. So now they're getting to feel what it's like to have this happen across the board.
So it seems like the inquiry knew no bounds.
Well, we're going to find out. We are. And I'm looking to the Department of Justice and the FBI to do that. and I'm not telling them whether to prosecute someone or if someone, it ought to be this person or that person. I'm telling them to follow the law. Follow the law. And I want to know why Jack Smith thought that he could go seek the phone records of 8 sitting United States senators. I want to know.
We do too. And they can form their own select committee, I think, if they want to. So maybe they'll do that. Or maybe they'll just send some additional letters. Josh Hawley said this: if Dems will target President Trump and sitting members of Congress, then no American is off limits. Like, yeah, we know. We need investigations and prosecution. So another point in the prosecution board. Here's Hawley responding to this.
Jack Smith was running the show there, right?
That's correct.
The reason why the investigation ended is because Donald Trump won the election.
That's correct.
If he loses that election, maybe this investigation continues.
Yeah, none of this ever comes out, so who cares? They think that they're going to get away with it. Then they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Now we can see exactly what they were taking. But if they would have taken Trump out and won and sidelined him or even imprisoned him with their fake setup scams, then it would have all been worth it. Who cares?
Where's it going, do you think? Did they think that there was some January 6th deal that needed to be looked at with a closer eye?
Oh, I think what it was is plainly an attempt to target Donald Trump. I think it all goes back to the fact they wanted to keep Trump off the ballot. Joe Biden, remember, directed the Attorney General at the time, Merrick Garland, to start investigating Trump. And this is what they did. They got a special prosecutor whose sole responsibility, his sole remit, was to go after Trump and anybody associated with Trump, anybody who was standing up to Biden. I think they wanted to keep Trump off the ballot. That failed. Then they wanted to prevent him from winning the election. That failed. They wanted to target anybody who was speaking up against Biden. That failed. But here we are, Bill. I mean, this is an incredible abuse of the FBI, which is the most powerful law enforcement agency in the world. And listen, if it can happen to members of Congress, it can happen to anybody. And we know it did. We know that they targeted ordinary citizens, pro-lifers, these 92 conservative organizations. We got to make sure this never happens.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I'll let you get back in the hearing. Thanks for stepping in.
92. Okay, not 97. Now, here, we need investigations and prosecutions, and hopefully we get them. It's nice to have them get a little, taste of their own government spying medicine. Joni Ernst, another one. Lots of clips today because they were all out, man. This is like a show of force. Go hit the media and make it known how corrupt they are. When President Trump moves a muscle, Democrats wail that it's a threat to democracy. The real threat to democracy is the Democrat deep state. Here's what Joni Ernst has to say.
It truly proves to the American people there is a deep state that exists within our federal government. And I will remind every one of your viewers, Harris, that every time President Donald Trump moves a muscle, you will hear the wailing of the Democrats, the gnashing of their teeth, and the wringing of their hands about how he is a threat to democracy. And yet here we have concrete evidence and proof that it was President Joe Biden and his deep state operatives that went after Republicans, anyone in opposition. It was Joe Biden. Chew on that a little bit, Democrats.
Yeah.
There is not a word that I have heard yet coming out of that judiciary hearing from the members of the Democratic Party that are pushing back on what was done in this former administration to President Donald Trump as a private citizen and as the members of this distinguished body, the United States Senate. This has got to end, Harris. We do need to get to the bottom of this. But again, this is the Democratic deep state. This is not a Republican threat to democracy. It is the Democrats that are threatening our democracy by going after elected officials and ordinary American citizens.
Yeah,
it truly proves.
Nice statement from her, and exactly right. And they weaponized everything from top to bottom. They went after politicians, private citizens. They went after lawyers. They went after doctors. They went after everybody. Now, the one Democrat that I have seen mention this is this guy. Very short clip here from Senator Coons. He's reacting. What do you think? Are you happy with your Democrats spying on you, Senator?
Just on the surface of it, would strike me as a significant invasion of the right of senators to conduct their jobs. So this is something I think needs urgent follow-up.
Oh, urgent follow-up. So he's not at prosecutions yet, but yeah, it's a big problem. So nice to have him actually come out and be truthful about that. Ron Johnson was also out. He says, what do Democrats want? Power. This is why they're acting like maniacs. They will do anything to acquire and maintain power, even spy on 8 U.S. senators. The damage they've inflicted on our democracy, constitutional republic, is something Russia and China could only dream of achieving. Here's Ron Johnson over on with Laura.
What do you think they were after?
One word answer, power. Democrats will do anything to acquire and maintain power. That's what this is all about. Yes, it's a fishing expedition. And Eric's the expert in terms of what crimes might be prosecuted. The damage that people like Comey, Brennan, Clapper, McCabe, Strzok, Page, Thibault, the damage they have done to our democracy, starting with the exoneration memo of Hillary Clinton through Crossfire Hurricane, the Russian hoax, up to this moment. Russia and China, they could only dream of interfering in our elections to that standpoint. I was targeted early with Senator Grassley with the unsolicited briefing in August of 2020 to run us off the tracks of the Hunter Biden investigation. Then they leaked that to the media, smearing me during my reelection campaign. So again, this is time and time and time again, orders of magnitude worse than anything they're falsely accusing Trump of doing.
Country is on.
Yeah, it's not a good situation, and hopefully now they're realizing that they need to participate in solving this problem. Right? They can't just, like heads in the sand, just ignore all of this and let the president do something about this. This is the Senate. The House needs to get it together, and there needs to be really a bipartisan overhaul. But if the Democrats don't want to get on board, then the Senate needs to spring into action. The House needs to stop with their writing of letters. And the DOJ needs to work in conjunction to take care of this gigantic problem. Here's Kash Patel, one man who may be able to help with that, talking about accountability coming soon.
Sean, I want to peel this onion carefully. Look, they put this information, those that weaponized the FBI and prior leadership at DOJ and FBI, they took this information where they subpoenaed 8 sitting United States senators, put it in a lockbox, put that lockbox in a vault, and then put that vault in a cyber place where no one can see or search these files. They're called restricted access and prohibited access. Restricted access means some people get to see it. Prohibited access, you put it in there when you want to hide it from the world, and that takes the authorization of the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI. So not only did they weaponize this law enforcement, but when we got in there, and when I got in as the FBI Director, from my experience as Russiagate, I knew where to look and what rooms to open and what doors to kick down. And that's what we did. We found this information to expose the politicization by Jack Smith and the prior Department of Justice. I mean, just think about it. 8 sitting United States senators, phone records were gathered and subpoenaed through the grand jury process, and it was buried and wormholed with the hope that no one would find it. So we're just scratching the surface here, but accountability is coming. You're darn right I fired those agents. You're darn right I blew up CR-15, the public corruption squad that led the weaponization at the Washington field office. We're just warming up, but we are running our investigations to the ground. We are finding every single person involved. We will not leave a single room locked. We will go in through all the prohibited access requirements, and we will find the material and show the American public, like we have done in this FBI, more transformative and transparent than any in the U.S. history, to bring accountability to the American people. And we will work with our partners in Congress, who should be furious at the prior administration's leadership and weaponization and singular politicization of law enforcement. The American public sees what we're doing, Sean, with the stats you just read off in the beginning. They see what we're doing here to unseal the vault and show the world how the deep state actually operated. It's not a Republican fiction. This is what Donald Trump was put in place to do, and I'm honored to be his FBI director to lead this charge. And the men and women at the FBI, we're all in on this mission.
All right, we hope so. So the Senate springing into action. We want a congressional partnership so that they can root out this problem. It's completely inappropriate. And if Trump were doing this, if the Trump administration were spying on 8 Democrats like Elizabeth Warren or something, man, she would be having a meltdown over there. And that would be a sight to see, blow all our eardrums out. But this is a good development, ultimately. It's nice that they're recognizing that the problems aren't just our problems. They also touch you guys too. So maybe you have an interest in solving this so that we can just root this stuff out so that we're all not getting attacked by our own government. And I can't imagine that my phones or anything have ever been, looked at or anything, but it was the same people who were sending emails, trying to demonetize our entire channel, giving us strikes, censoring us, and colluding with the FBI working with the social media companies, Elvis Chan facilitating the COVID misinfo stuff. It's all part and parcel of a corrupt and disgusting law enforcement agency that doesn't actually serve the real interest of the American people, serves the token arrest, like, oh yeah, we got the drugs, we're getting the bad guys, blah, 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 blah. But that's just the cover story. The real operational force is to maintain political power for the entity that supports them. In this case, it was the Democratic Party, and they tried to use it to the fullest extent possible, and they lost, and we're happy for that. So the purge and these prosecutions will take some time to continue. And we were saying this even back at the start of the year. We're here March. April was coming along. People, where are the indictments at? Where are they? We said, well, give it like 9 months. We get to like September, October, end of the year. They'll have had 3 months to get situated, just to get their White House legs under them. Then it'll take another 3 months to start getting the right people in place and doing their investigations. And so we're hopeful to see indictments at about 9-10 months. And boom, we're here with Comey. He just had his arraignment today. So I know these things are slow, and there's a lot of, enthusiasm for charges, and believe me, I couldn't be more excited. But this feels like it's kind of about right on track, and we're making progress through it. So we're hopeful to give them the benefit of the doubts on this one and these prosecutions, because there is a lot of alignment between the White House and the Senate now and the House. And this is the opportunity to make sure that these criminals are rooted out and gone for good from the government. Now, let's continue on. We've got one final segment on the day. Then we'll hear from you, my friends. And this is a big one from Judicial Watch. Historic oral arguments today in the Supreme Court. That's according to Judicial Watch. And it's about election integrity and in specific standing. If you remember, that word and that issue was a big deal back in the 2020 aftermath when we were covering all the lawsuits here. Trump was suing in many locations for rigged elections because the courts were entering agreements with secretaries of states to change the election rules right in the run up to the election. COVID's going to kill everybody. So we have to extend the dates. We have to waive signature requirements. We have to set a bunch more ballot drop boxes all over the place. And judges were saying, perfect, go do those things. Well, they're not the legislature. They don't govern time, place, and manner of elections. The legislature does, but they didn't care. And guys like Mark Elias and Democracy Docket were suing all over the place, exploiting a retired alliance of Americans, whatever, to make these changes. And when Trump sued to say, you can't do that, they said, you don't have standing to sue. Who do you think you are? Well, I'm a candidate. I'm running. I'm going to be on the election. Well, so what? You can't file a claim here because we can manage elections. And then Trump would say, well, I'm seeing this problem come down the line, right? Okay, we're going to sue like a month before the election. They said, well, how can you sue before the elections even happen? How can you know if anything's going to go wrong? And so this is not a ripe issue. It needs to ripen up. So you're dismissed. It's basically a subcategory of standing. You don't have standing. It's not ripe yet. Okay, so I'll sue after the election. Well, the election's over. Hello, latches. And it's over. It's moot now. So you can't sue now. So you have no standing. Get out. All lawsuits were like dismissed. We're like, what? When can you sue? Like the day of the election. So then there were day of the election lawsuits. And like, well, you can't interfere with the rules in the middle of the election. And now it's over. And we have an interest in finality. It's like insane. Why? because they just wanted to rig the elections. And they were very successful when they had the judges, the same judges, by the way. Okay, this is the same pattern. And it's so interesting to go through this now because they're acting the same that they were now that they were back in 2020. All of these nationwide injunctions and all of this garbage, like illegal aliens deserve due process, and they deserve a conspiracy between judges to keep them in custody in America and release them from custody. One judge providing cover for another, so he's transported back over here and Homeland can't do anything about it, all working together. It was all the same judges that were ruling on the election cases and changing the election rules. It's the same concept. They were just weaponizing it. Now they're doing it to stop the president from enforcing his mandate. But before then, they were doing it to rig the election. It's the same people, just a different issue. So now this has finally worked its way up to the Supreme Court. Here's the background. Judicial Watch is excited to share this one with us, saying that they announced today that oral arguments will be held today. We're going to listen to some excerpts of it. But this case is about a representative called Bost, B-O-S-T, and whether electors can even sue. Do they have standing to sue? The issue is really about the counting of ballots that arrived after Election Day. And so Trump was suing for all sorts of different reasons. Well, over here, they changed this rule this way. That's illegal. Over here, this way. But most cases were just dumped based on standing alone. The sub issue on this is the counting of the ballots. Now, this lawsuit was initially filed on May 25th, 2022. A lower court said, you don't have standing. And then they appealed it. And the Court of Appeals says, you don't have standing. He's like, I'm a representative. Literally. I'm running in the election. How can you say I'm not being injured or that this doesn't matter? Now, Judicial Watch was in on this case, and it made its way up to the Supreme Court. You can see a bunch of this stuff happened in 2024. We're fast forwarding to today. There were oral arguments that took place. We'll listen to a little bit of them. The final reply came in from the representative on September 25th. And what's interesting is the U.S. Solicitor General wanted to participate, filed an amicus brief, and wanted to have a say. In other words, the U.S. government is joining in with the state representative. The state representative is suing the Illinois board, so they will stop collecting the ballots that come in late after the deadline. Okay, election's over. You can't keep counting the ballots. So this has made its way to the Supreme Court, and we've got some oral argument coming up. But before we get there, I wanted to just run through briefly, because this is a 2-hour oral argument, and there's a lot of details here. But here are some of the key highlights that we need to understand. So Michael Bost versus Illinois State Board of Elections. And the question, can you sue? Does a candidate even have standing? Can you even file a lawsuit to challenge the mail-in ballot rules? Or the rules are just whatever they are, and you can't sue. Illinois, the rule is mail-in ballots, as it stands right now, can be received up to 2 weeks after Election Day. Isn't that convenient in Illinois? They said, I can't sue over that? 2 weeks? So the people who are suing the representative has a couple of theories. He says, first of all, I'm actually the direct object of this entire battle. Like, I am being directly impacted. Saying being a candidate is enough. This isn't just, you're not a third-party bystander. I'm not suing saying, well, I think your election rules are bad. The candidate is suing. So since you're the direct object of the issue, you should be allowed to sue. And the rule is aimed at determining the winner of the election. Okay, so if the 2 weeks allows a bunch of ballots to come in after the fact, 2 weeks after the election, it literally is going to determine the outcome. So this rule is consequential. So I have standing. There's also saying, well, there's other highly regulated enterprises like broker-dealers, there's procedural rights, and more. So one theory is we're just the actual candidate alone. So since we're the subject, we're the direct object of this, that's enough. But there's also what's called a pocketbook injury, are their arguments, saying this extends the campaign another 2 weeks. I got to still be hustling for votes 2 weeks after. And so it is actually a more expensive campaign. There are a bunch of costs associated with it, paying campaign staff for 2 weeks, poll watchers, ballot monitoring. There's a reallocation of money. You have to, it distorts your spending. Now you have to spend some money, save some in the tank for after the election. And it's actually separating from the electoral outcome. Now you have a whole separate process. You have an election day, and then there's like a ballot collection segment, a section of 2 weeks where you go just round them up. And the third theory, again, all of these are supporting standing, are that if you count unlawful ballots, it could change the outcome of the election. So it's not, we're not speculating here. Like, we need to have this rule settled, and we need to have standing to sue so we can settle the rule. And if there is a change in the rule, it does increase the cost of the campaign. If there's a margin of victory, that impacts your reputation, right? So like on election night, you win by 10 points, but then they print a bunch of ballots and send them in and you win by 3 points. There's a change in your reputational win. So there's an interest there in making sure we have quick finality that's in alignment with the law. There's also a risk threshold and more. So they say, we've got standing, all right? And it's all fleshed out in their briefings, but the arguments against standing, so Illinois says, no, okay, we're Illinois. We want to count as many ballots as possible, and after the election is over, we're going to have a number that we need to hit in order to steal it. So they say, first of all, you can't just sue because you're going to have some monetary damages or something. And if you let candidates sue, then this is going to be chaotic. It's going to now allow candidates all over the place to sue for everything. They can just say, well, we don't like this rule or this rule. And so there'll be floodgates of candidates suing. There's also going to be, they say there's no reputational harm. So what? And it's all of this is speculative. And so you can't sue if it's just speculative damages. Like, what are the actual damages that are coming down or that you're incurring right now? Saying if and may, and we can't decide if you're going to win the election or not. So you have to show a substantial risk. And all of these are just kind of maybe risks. And margin of victory doesn't harm you at all. And it's not just about money damages. If you lost some money, then you can maybe sue for money damages. Just losing money and expending money is not a cognizable claim against the government. So what, it costs you more? We have a much stronger interest in ensuring we have people's votes counted, is basically their argument. And there are provisional ballots. There are other ballots that we're counting anyway. And so the time for voting is not actually being extended. It's only the collection of the votes. So you just have to at least make sure you date it before the election, kind of a thing. So they say that's not enough. And that's the backdrop. Those are the main arguments from all the parties. And so with that being said, now let's listen to some oral arguments that took place, starting with the congressional representatives opening arguments here today.
Generalized grievance. That decision is not only wrong, but dangerous. It needlessly injects federal courts into the role of political prognosticators. It risks denying judicial access to minor party candidates, and it shuffles election disputes into the closest races and the worst possible context. Election disputes after the election where federal courts are in the uncomfortable position of having to pick the political winners. There is a better way, and it simply requires acknowledging that candidates have a unique, concrete, and particularized interest in the rules of the electoral road, especially those that address which ballots are going to be counted and when. At a bare minimum, a longer campaign is a more expensive campaign, and that classic pocketbook injury is sufficient to give Congressman Bost standing. There is no need to make the standing inquiry here any more complicated than that. I welcome the court's questions.
Mr. Clement, how do we know that petitioner will suffer a risk of competitive harm?
Clarence Thomas?
So in some respects, we know that from the very fact that he is a candidate in the election. I mean, obviously, he's put that in a declaration as well, but I think this is something where every candidate cares very deeply and uniquely about the outcome of the election, but also their vote tally and the margin of victory or the margin of defeat. And this idea that, like, all a candidate can care about is the ultimate win-or-loss, I just don't think that maps on to the way elections actually operate or people think about them.
Well, I think you could argue that he will actually benefit from the additional time.
So, I mean...
Well, someone has to benefit, or there wouldn't be a risk of competitive harm.
I suppose any time the government changes the rules for any highly regulated activity, it may be that some of the people that are affected by the new regulations are actually going to be better off. They may be better able to sort of incur the costs, or they may be better able to take advantage of that additional time. Here, Congressman Bost has alleged that, no, this is going to hurt his sort of margin for victory. But I also think as a general matter, I'm not even sure you need to get to that level, which is to say, if this were just a simple regulated industry, if the SEC promulgated new rules for registered broker-dealers, you'd expect the broker-dealers, some of them, to come and sue about those new rules. I think you wouldn't be that worried that broker-dealers were coming in and actually suing for rules that help them. The market sort of shifts,
the point,
takes care of that.
That this regulation is not of a broker-dealer. It's not of the candidate. It's of voters. So it's not a direct regulation. But going back to your margin of victory, in the case where we decided that a campaign ad had standing, in that case, there were affidavits that said these ads increase the amount of revenue we receive or can decrease it. So there was an affidavit that said that. Here, you don't even say that the margin of error is going to affect. You don't have anybody saying anything close to that. You're just saying the margin of error could have a reflection on me. That's a generalized statement with no support.
So two things, Your Honor. First, just on the first point, if the new broker-dealer regulations from the SEC regulated the terms at which the customers could deal with the broker-dealers, I think the broker-dealers would still have...
But this is not how they're dealing with the candidates. They're still voting for the candidate. They're not being deprived of their right to get their voters to vote.
Well,
so I'm not sure the analogy doesn't work for me, Mr. Clement.
Well,
but let's go back to my point that I'm not sure that someone who says to the court below that his, quote, injury is not based on the risk of losing the election, seems to me that he's foregone that argument here, as he did below, and that the question becomes whether this margin of victory issue is enough.
So
okay, so kind of a procedural thing. Did he lose the right to even make this argument based on what happened below, or is that moot, right? Is that already something that you've forfeited, is the word that she used. So we'll fast forward a little bit. Let's see what Alito had to say about some of this. Why is competitive injury, why is that not the better argument than the other arguments that we saw?
McPherson, we didn't really think we would have to sort of plead more. And even when the complaint was challenged, we sort of thought that we'd done enough. And then all I can say in response to that is, of course we could say that, and we said it all in our briefs in front of this court. So we could have said more. But boy, that's a weird inquiry to then think it's going to stick around in the case. That's the thing. It's like, if you think about this only as, well, this is just what you need to plead, and then we're done with standing forever, these cases, seem cleaner. But that issue stays in the case.
I understand. One final question, and I should have researched this myself beforehand. When was this new rule enacted? And do we know what the partisan breakdown on voting for the rule was, and could we take judicial notice of that?
So this rule was 2005, and I don't think there is robust data that would allow you could take judicial notice of this.
All right,
and
thank you.
As we send the reply brief, my friend tries to make something of one data point for one county in one election. We don't even know what the kind of comparator is. So
Gotcha.
All right, we have a little bit more. Here's another one that might be interesting. Kagan presses Illinois on a candidate's right to sue. Let's see what she says. So now Illinois has made their opening arguments, and she's asking, well, when can they sue? I mean, never?
What's come before. And that is a usual standing inquiry. And, it's not a bespoke anything. It's like, this is a new rule. It's going to harm me relative to what's come before. I have a right to complain about it. Why isn't just that's enough?
I actually don't think we would have any problem at all with that rule. I think the problem is that Congressman Bost can't show standing based on that rule, because then I would go back to the declaration.
I think he could show standing. Whether he did show standing is another thing entirely, right? That this is a complaint that sort of seems a little bit to be created in order to test I don't have to show injury at all theory. But it would be very easy for Congressman Bost to write a complaint that satisfied my rule.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, and I guess maybe appreciate you sort of appropriately reframing. My point is that what he wrote at page 68 and 69 of his declaration does not satisfy that rule, because when asked about electoral loss, he used the word if. That's a mere theoretical possibility of harm. He provides no explanation why he thinks he plausibly could lose his election. And when asked about a diminished margin of victory, he uses the word may, which suffers from the same problem. He had a wealth of information available to him. I know I keep going back to the fact that he's an experienced candidate, but it matters. He had lived through, at the time he prepared this declaration, 8 elections under the ballot receipt deadline. He said in his declaration, I send poll watchers every single time. So he would have known at the end of the day.
Okay, so he individually is not experiencing the harm because he should have known better to prepare for the rules. So we got it. Now, here's one more. Let's go back to Kavanaugh asking about a candidate suing after an election. And there's not much more. We've got a little bit of Justice Jackson, but we'll skip that. Here is Kavanaugh from before.
What's the remedy?
Well,
do you throw out those votes? Because if you do, some of those voters might say, oh, I actually would have voted earlier if I had known. I'm just trying to figure out how that would play out.
So I think that would be the right remedy, and I think that's kind of a nightmare scenario for exactly the reason that you point out. And I don't think there's any reason for the standing rules to basically say that you have to decide all these issues in those nightmare scenarios, or even in the very closest districts. And the point I was trying to make is, like, if you think about this case proceeding past the pleading standard, the idea that you would have like competing experts come in and say, you know, Congressman Bost is kind of a lousy candidate, so this one's going to be pretty close. And that would be my expert, because I'd have to show that the election is close in order to have standing. And then they'd come in and their expert would say, no, Congressman Bost is the best candidate there's ever been. He's going to win this thing in a landslide.
Well, would you agree to a rule like this one, which sort of makes this question of do you have to show you would win or do you have to show margin of victory a little bit irrelevant? That what you have to show something. It's not enough to just walk in and say, hi, I'm a candidate and I'm suing. But what you have to show is some kind of substantial risk or substantial likelihood, whatever the phrase may be from our standing doctrine, that the new rule puts you at an electoral disadvantage relative to the old rule. So that, you know, if the new rule says more mail-in ballots, then you just have to plead that that's a kind of rule that puts you to an electoral disadvantage. And say something, not a lot, but something to suggest that that's right.
So I could live with that rule. I don't know that it's the ideal rule. I mean, I'm not coming in here asking for a broad rule because I'd like to win this case in the hardest possible way. I'm asking for that because I actually see advantages to it, namely that even under your view, you still, in theory, would have at the summary judgment stage this like debate in Article III courts about whether late arriving ballots help Republican candidates or Democratic candidates. And that makes me sufficiently uncomfortable that I actually would prefer a rule that says, no, Congressman Bost is coming in and he's saying there are going to be unlawful votes cast and there'll be ballots with his name on it in his election. That's enough. We're done. None of these.
I mean, your rule really does just take out the injury requirement entirely. It just says you should assume that if a candidate is there before the court, the candidate has good reasons for being there before the court. And for the most part, I think we have rejected that view of standing. I mean, for example, we said there's no such thing as doctor standing just a couple of years ago. So too here, it seems quite inconsistent.
They're not running for election. Okay, so she sounds interesting. Like she actually might agree that the standing rules for political candidates are too narrow and too strict. So very interesting from her. And doesn't look like we had any standout highlights from Chief Justice Roberts or Amy Coney Barrett. Don't see anything marked for Gorsuch. I'm sure they had some questions, but it's going to be a big case. You know, we'll see what the courts do, but the idea that a candidate can't sue and has to show like provable election fraud or something like that in order to bring a claim is ridiculous, because part of the litigation process is you need to have it start somewhere so that the investigation can continue and you can demand discovery and haul people into court. But they didn't want to do that in 2020, so they just dumped everything based on standing. And they said Trump lost everywhere. You didn't even let the case get to the merits. The judges just said, well, the election's over. And they were all freaked out because they did not want to override the will of the people. No judge was going to do that. We saw that. We covered it all. Covered the Kerry Lake trial in the next election and all of it. So it has been an ongoing battle, but the same judges who are instituting a coup to take over the federal executive and run the presidency are the same people who are making decisions on many of these lawsuits ages ago, and they just changed issues. Last time it was to help rig an election. Now it's to try to rig a presidency. And of course, we're going to wait to see what the Supreme Court has to say on this. But even Kagan, who's on the left, feels like she is flirting with the idea of opening up the standing rules. And so we're hopeful that we can actually sue and actually get in front of judges, even if it is going to be rigged. At least let us make and take a shot on goal, for crying out loud. So we'll keep our eye on this one, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and joining. As we do, the Supreme Court will issue a ruling and we'll be here to cover it. All right. And apparently we have a ceasefire deal. What is happening out there? All right, let's see what's cooking over. Let's go over. We'll see what Fox has to say. Everlasting peace, baby. Hamas accepts Trump's peace plan, ending 2 years of war in Gaza and returning the hostages. What? That's incredible news, if that is true. Let's see what's going on in here, man. Under Trump's peace plan, Hamas will be granted amnesty and a path out of Gaza.
Thank you very much, everybody.
So he just did a full news conference that we missed here. All right, that's good to know. So, all right, he's got a oh, wait, no, that was the old one. That's when Bibi was in town. Yeah, okay, I was going to say, what? He was? All right, so Hamas has agreed to a peace deal to end the war and return the hostages 2 years after the terrorist network attacked Israel on 10/7 yesterday, and 2 years from yesterday, sparking not only the bloodiest day for Jews since the Holocaust, but a deadly war. Trump took to Truth Social to make the announcement. Boom. All right. So that's where it came down. Let's see what he's got over there from the president. He posted this. I am very proud, 31 minutes ago, baby, fresh out of the oven. I am very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means that all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. All parties will be treated fairly. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And we thank the mediators from Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey who worked with us to make this historic and unprecedented event happen. Blessed are the peacemakers. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. So, dang, that's a big whopper of an announcement. Amazing. Says, Benjamin Netanyahu also agreed to a 20-point plan. And, man, the exact terms of the agreement remain unclear. Though under the original agreement, Hamas would have to completely disarm. In exchange for this, all the planning could begin. Hamas, under the terms, would also have been granted amnesty for those who willingly give up their arms. And once all hostages have been returned, Israel would release 250 life sentence prisoners. And again, I think those were the original terms, so who ultimately knows what the final deal is. But man, that sounds like great news. Great news, man. We hope and pray for peace. So that is awesome. And I hope they can pull it off. Everybody over there. All right. So awesome stuff. I'm sure there'll be more on that developing, but that is breaking right out of the oven. watching the cables, they're not saying anything else all that new or interesting. So, my friends, what a beautiful stream it has been. If you're just joining us, we talked about a few good things today. We talked about Comey getting arraigned formally. Look at this guy. Twice charged felon. Arraigned today in court in the Eastern District of Virginia. We looked at the documents. We got our eyes around what happened in court and saw his release conditions. And so he'll be out wandering around without any bond or ankle monitor, unfortunately. But we'll keep our eye on this. Nancy Pelosi got called out. We had Schmidt and others saying, we want more prosecutions to come. Same thing with Comer and with Jim Jordan. Then we turned our attention to Jack Smith, because now we've got senators saying that Jack Smith needs to go to jail, baby. And ain't that the truth? So Tommy Tuberville making that argument. Many other senators very unhappy about it. Kash Patel saying more is coming down very soon, so just get ready for that. Then we turned our attention to a Supreme Court case. Very important. Oral arguments today on election standing rules. We talked about the arguments that were being made from both sides and heard a little bit about what the Supreme Court justices thought in oral arguments today in SCOTUS. And then just learned that apparently there's a peace deal at last. And so hopefully that does go through and we have more good news tomorrow. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already done that, and for being amazing and awesome and joining us on this live stream. It's better when we do it together, and we're glad that you're here with us. We got some great comments over from our friends all across the interwebs. And here were a couple of thoughts that came in. Oh my gosh, look at this. Kitty Maraca. What a beautiful sight. Kitty Maraca in the house with a sombrero, having a little papusa fiesta. Rick D, what's up, Rick D? 17 months as a membo, 1 more month to 2 babies. Oh my gosh, that's right, because 9 plus 9, carry the 1, add the numbers. It's 18, right? Rick, that's amazing, man. I can't wait to meet our second baby. Thanks for being here, Rick. Hopefully your knee's better so you can get back out of those airplanes. Knox, what's up, Knox? Happy Wednesday, all. This is the wonderful Comey arraignment day. May it forever be marked. Think of where we were a mere year ago. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, they were trying to sub in Kamala, right? Trump had just beaten the crap out of Joe Biden on the stage. Of the president. Everybody goes, what the heck was that? Remember, that was like in July, wasn't it? And then they subbed him out shortly thereafter, and they were trying to cram Kamala down our gullets in October 24. Ooh, baby. Yeah, a lot has changed. And we're happy to be here for it. Thank you, Knox. Hopefully your week is amazing. Sheila Pooh, a million hugs to you. Sheila, thanks for bringing in 10 new membos. We had a great members only stream this morning. We talked about crazy Katie Porter and how she had a meltdown during an interview. I'm done. I don't want to answer any questions from you. It was a fun one. Hey, what's up? We got Sheila Pooh. So my friends, grab the morning stream and join us in our after party happening soon. Crimlon, what's up? Jeremy Alt is here. We got Christy Shortridge, Saxon 5, welcome. Liz S, Tanya C, Kimberly Ferris, welcome. Mangles the Cat, Gillis is here. Tater Tots, and more friends all coming in courtesy of Sheila Pooh. A million hugs to you. Thanks for bringing in 10 new membo friends. Alan is the bestest. Alan Harkin, what a generous dono this is. Thank you for the big one, my friend. Hey, great review, Rob. It goes without saying you are the leader in solid, truthful, and entertaining reviews of the day. It warms my heart to see more crooks laid out to bear. Bravo. Alan, me too, my man. Me too. It does warm my heart. And today it felt good. Boopsy on the members only stream yesterday was saying something very similar. She says, Rob, how does it feel to see this? And I was like, such a good question. I don't really know. What is the feeling? What is the feeling? It's it's not glee. I'm not giddy that these people are being arrested or all the senators what, we got spied on too. It's a little sense of vindication, but it's not over, So vindication kind of has a sense of finality to it. But today it did feel good to see them ask for jail. It's like, oh my goodness. Like, how long have we all been saying that? Isn't it good to hear them say, to read this right here from a senator? He needs to go to jail for this. Like, that alone, I was like, ah. The clouds opened and parted, and like this beam of light came down onto this X post right here. Ah, he needs to go to jail for this. Yeah! We've been saying that for years. It's nice to hear from a senator on cable. It's like, oh my gosh, finally, man. A little sense of relief, you know? So, Alan, it's a nice development because these people have been crooks for years, and they've been running around like they're untouchable, posting stupid seashell photos and laughing, writing books about it, celebrating it. And now justice is coming. It is good. Alan, thank you again for the nice dono. Thanks for all always the beautiful comments and for being here. You're awesome. MJ Powell, what's up? 17 months as a membo, almost 2 full babies in the house. Thanks for being here, MJ Powell. I thought you were not allowed to be here. You're going to get fired, man. Happy Wednesday, Rob, and to all the watchers here today. In the house for all of 24 and 25 so far, plus at least 2 months of 23. So that makes me a member for 24 months, 2.5 babies. Or that was Mock Schnell, I think, who's going to get fired. So that's why we're not hearing from Mock Schnell. Sorry about that. Yeah, MJ, so you're allowed to be here. So that makes me a member for 24 months, 2.5 babies. Very cool indeed. That is cool. So it counts. 24 months, 2.5 babies. Need a calculator. I'll take your word for it. Thanks for being here for 24 months and for being so amazing the entire time. Thank you. What's up, Chubby Stubby? Of course, Pelosi has to point out the crime she committed was never prosecuted. Yeah, destruction of government property. You can't just tear up that record. They charged a bunch of J6ers with like obstruction and destruction of government records. Obstruction of basically 1512C. No charges for her when she tore up that State of the Union in her very aggressive, basically a temper tantrum from Nancy Pelosi. Pathetic. Mommy Mima, welcome. 6 months as a membo. Thank you, Mommy Mima. I almost said memo. Mommy Memo, Mimo, Membo. Mommy Membo in the house. 6 months. Just love the 5, maybe 7 protesters. I know there wasn't that many. There wasn't a lot of love out there. They're like, how many people can you get to come out and support James Comey? You're like, what, for free? Not a lot. Not for free. All right, what's your budget? I don't know. All right, I got 7 people. That's all I can do for that. Thank you, Mommy Mima. It's true. It's pretty light out there. Boiling Point Live. What's up, Boiling Point? Good to have you here. Boiling Point and I had a great interview over on his channel. The Rev in the house. Great to have you as a membo, Boiling Point Live. Check out our interview. It was like 2 weeks ago. It's a good time. S. Quinn. Hey, speaking of Comey, if you watch the video of General Flynn has pinned to his X, it shows us the order of indictments, in my humble opinion, from S. Quinn. Yeah, Jen Flynn, S. Quinn, shouting out Jen Flynn, he's been posting some interesting stuff too about Charlie and an alternative take on him, right? Chubby says, every senator upset over Smith's spying would be absolutely silent and disinterested if they were not included. No, they didn't care when it was 92 Republican organizations. I mean, they cared. They'll ask about it. But man, like they're not calling for jail at all. They weren't calling for jail if Jack Smith or Timothy Thibault, as far as I know. But now they are. Like, he should be in jail for this. Like, oh, man, that hit a nerve, didn't it? They're only upset because it happened to them. It's true. Don Goff, what's up? If Congress had been this upset about the FBI going after conservative citizens, we wouldn't be here now. No. Hopefully they would have stopped it, right? That's the idea. Hey, guys, we've been banging the drum on this, that these people are criminals, and they've been abusing their positions in many ways, getting warrants and just, investigating everybody from top to bottom. But they did this one little problematic investigative technique, which was to take a look at their phone records in this little subset. And that exposes the whole game. And we know now the Senate can see it. We're glad they can. We're happy Jack Smith did this so that they can now recognize what we've all been screaming about, that he belongs in jail with many others. Chubby, where was all this bluster and anger when the FBI raided James O'Keefe for the diary? Nowhere. I feel no sympathy for these senators that knew it was happening to citizens and did nothing about it. Yeah, and it's like, come on, guys. I also have a little bit of doubt, like that they did not know this stuff was going on, because Tucker Carlson has given interviews where he said he's been spied on. And people in the government have told him that. Like, hey, man, remember when he was going to Russia? He told the story that somebody like tried to stop him from going to Russia, or like knew that he was going to Russia, and he never told anybody about it, except on his phone. So he's like, they're spying on me for sure. And if they're tapping my phones for this, you know, why are, and I think he even commented about that. Like, they've got senators' numbers. I think he said that, right, in some interview. Like, I told the senators, like, yeah, they're doing it to us too. Like, how is this even happening? How is our government that's supposed to be keeping oversight on the FBI and the CIA getting spied on by those very agencies who will exploit their power to commandeer them for their own political ends? It's disgusting. Yeah. So I got to imagine they know about it. I think some of it is probably performative, but they have to basically defend their honor. It's nice to see it. What's up? Hey, I'm an American man. Oh, sorry, Rick D. I didn't mean to skid on by that one. Rick D, thank you for the dono. We did talk about that. Just read that. Peace at last. Praying for peace at last. That would be a beautiful thing. I'm an American man. Me too, my man. Sun's out, guns out. It's getting a little bit chillier around here, around these parts. October. So it's a little bit, when it's colder out, you got to put the guns back in the jackets, you know. But we're enjoying it for the remainder of the season. I'm an American man. Thank you for the cup of Joe and for the nice donos and for being a member. We'll see you in the after party in just a minute. Jonah Ryan, what's up? Yeah, can Bost case be precedent against scumbag Mark Elias? Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of why this is a big deal. Because Mark filed a bunch of lawsuits, Democracy Docket and his colleagues. They sued secretaries of states who were friendly. Then they entered into settlement agreements and said, we don't need to have this lawsuit. So it's like a friendly lawsuit. They were just playing patty cake. Mark said, oh, COVID's going to kill everybody. Secretary of State says, yeah, we're going to kill everybody. We got to change all the rules. Let's enter a settlement agreement so we don't have to have this litigation. The judges just approve it. They say, oh, it's a voluntary agreement. The Secretary of State, she's being sued. It gives her a reason to do it. All the rules change. Judge signs it. Under emergency orders approved by the governor. State legislature has nothing to do with it. They're the ones who control those things, but the courts just change it and the secretaries deploy it. All rigged. So yeah, if they're standing to sue and challenge those things, then they're going to have they got a lot of their challenges to their scams dismissed based on standing. So if you can sue, then they're not going to have that argument to dismiss the lawsuits anymore. It's good stuff. I'm an American man. Says tired. Cup of Joe. Yeah, it's Wednesday. We're kind of building up to the end of the week. Says what broccoli is saying is give peas a chance. I happen to love both of those vegetables. I like broccoli. I like peas. I like Brussels sprouts. I'm a fan. So I will give peas a chance. We love peas and peace. Hey, Rick D. Yeah, the knee's doing much better, but won't be jumping the rest of the year. Ugh, Rick. Ugh, double Rick. The group I jump with had an equipment malfunction that resulted in a death. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry to hear that, Rick. And peace to their families and that person. So shutdown is pending investigation. Man, that is terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, and Rick's jumped out of an airplane like 5,000, almost 6,000 times. Working on 6,000, I think. Doan, sorry to hear that, Rick, man. Peace, prayers up for that fam. Doan, good deal in Gaza, but the elite Israeli Caesara branch of the Mossad won't let it slow them down. Won't let it slow them down. From Doan. Well, I just hope that there's no more war that's over there. So whatever happens after that, I'm sure will continue. Bucky's is Rome. Hamas and Israel agree to leave. Trump flying to the Middle East to get hostages. Agree to a ceasefire. Man, is he flying over there? That's huge. Trump announces they've officially agreed to phase 1. All hostages will be released. I mean, what a win. What a success this is. Hey, Milan, thank you for sharing those. Benny Johnson's posting the Trump truth. Amazing. Shout out to Benny. and his crew over there. Good stuff. All right. So, my friends, shocking. I mean, breaking news. And we're happy to see that. So, I'm sure there'll be more developments on that. And we'll be looking forward to it with some updates tomorrow. No question. Now, let's see what else we've got. Let's say hello to our friends on X, and then we're wrapping it up. We'll have an after party for our membos, and we'll see what you have to say about all of this. OTR Smokehouse, thank you for posting our Rumble link over on X. James Pepper says Biden is publishing his memoirs for $10 million. Did an auto pen write it? Is that what's going on? What's up? Is James still able to play on the yellow line? I don't even know what that means. Interesting question. Peter Safety on X. CV Davis, all needs to be charged as a grand conspiracy. Most important factor will be jury selection. Yeah, it's a rough jury over there. So we got questions about a lot of that, about, the final outcomes, but they still need their day in court. And if they're acquitted or whatever, so be it. If the cases are dismissed, whatever, so be it. But no one's above the law. They go through the system. Tim, what's up? It looks like the Patriot Act has bitten some senators in the butt. The FISA court was used against the president. Why are these clowns all mad now? Yeah, they were used against them. This is actually funny stuff. If Smith thought that they were in cahoots with Trump, Smith had a right to look from Tim against them. And think he should have gotten like a warrant, maybe signed off on by a judge, or what was the proceeding? What was the procedure? Interesting. All right. Good to see you, Tim. Thanks for the question or for the comment over there. And Jeffrey Adams, thank you for this one. Did anyone think to interview McGonigal serving 4 years about James Comey? That's an interesting question. Yeah. Probably. But I think we saw him. Was he in he was in the Durham report, right? Charles McGonigal. Yeah, I don't know. I hope so. Thank you, Jeffrey Adams, for the dono. Good question. Hopefully they did. All right. So, my friends, thank you so much for being here. Happy Wednesday. It's hump day, middle of the week, all downhill from here. We had a great stream, bunch of good stuff. Comey, Jack Smith, Supreme Court business, and we had some fun. So thank you for being here and joining us on the day. Now is the time for our members only after party. We're going to go debrief, see what you have to say about the show, take some locals comments, and wrap it up for the evening. And we'd love if you came and joined us there, watchingthewatchers.locals.com and on YouTube membos. We'll drop a link in the chat, and then we'll see you in the after party. So hang tight. That will be coming soon. But before we wrap up, my friends, want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths. Thank you to Donut and to John for clipping for us. K-Bean, Carrie B. We got Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger, our friends Gigum, Just Rhonda, and Elliot modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and beautiful around here. Thank you for that. And my friends, thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing if you haven't already done so. Thanks for liking this video. And thanks for coming back here tomorrow, because in order to have an appropriate show, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. care